You've got one night to save Mario from the supernatural. This game will scare you silly. Luigi's Mansion, only on Nintendo GameCube.
Waking up one early morning as a kid with blurry vision and all, I set my eyes on a GameCube case for Luigi's Mansion. But then I realized my mom was holding the game in front of my face, saying happy birthday to me. I got super excited and said thank you, of course, but I don't think she realized that she put into my hands what will become one of my favorite video games of all time. And what a great gift too. I mean, she recognized Mario games, but with only the knowledge of Luigi being my favorite, it's amazing that she even decided to pick this up. Luigi's Mansion took over the spot of a Mario game when released side by side to the GameCube, and genuinely what an interesting but much better end choice. Of course, naturally we get Super Mario Sunshine just about a year later, and while that is far more open in world structure, mechanics, and even the gameplay length, Luigi's Mansion, in my opinion, does just as much for the Mario series as Sunshine, if not even more so. Luigi's personality is fleshed out, which carry on to every other Mario game from then on. Gadd's a supporting character here and becomes a repeating character in newer games, and honestly, best of all, Luigi's Mansion is just a remake of Mario is Missing. Yeah, none of y'all believe that for a second, but it was a good try though. So Luigi's Mansion is far from innovative and really is more of this beta test to showcase amazing concepts the GameCube could showcase compared to the N64. I mean, this is the new era of Nintendo, dipping into this modern 3D world and competing with other AAA publishers. Luigi's Mansion had to compete with the powerhouses of 2001 games. We had Final Fantasy X dominating the RPGs, and Halo quite literally held the frame for the photo that is the FPS genre, and Smash Melee came out like a month after Luigi's Mansion, so almost zero chance in reality for this game to really compete. But beyond all expectations, this weird Mario game, if that's what you want to call it, held through the test of time and gained such a unique love from Nintendo fans that grew up in this age, giving the series what it deserved with multiple remasters and an entire trilogy. But even beyond all of that, the original for GameCube still holds as one of the console's finest for charm and replayability alone. I am extremely overwhelmed, but excited to finally talk about one of the greatest games that became one of my all-time favorites, and how this series became a staple in Nintendo's iconic first-party lineup. This is Luigi's Mansion. As an adult, you don't really think too heavily towards the story, and I argue you never should with any Mario game. But playing through this game as a kid, the story just clicked, and I feel like that's how it was for a lot of players at the time. The whole setting fits perfectly while staying true to that Mario game plot of just rescuing someone you love. Just this time, it's Mario who's being saved. And I love that it doesn't hold Mario to this higher respect than Luigi. It honestly makes Mario look like the dumbass in this situation who got caught, and allows Luigi to show how cool he can really be. I just love the setup for this game like this, and to have a horror-themed Mario game is still mind-blowing to have, even now. Although, is Luigi's Mansion really a horror game? So while it takes many elements from traditional horror media, it really cartoonifies it. The haunted mansion, the darker atmosphere, the chaotic ghost sequences, and even the eerie soundtrack that holds a lot of quirky string instruments and some haunting organ melodies all wrapped nicely as catchy Mario tunes. The music in here is good, almost too good at times, and super fresh as far as Nintendo tracks go overall. It never really fits into any category. It fills all styles ranging from the fast-paced, heavy-sounding boss battles to chill, ambient, spooky beats. It covers a lot and really gets you into this niche rhythm, making you excited to be playing. I love how Luigi hums the main mansion theme, and he even hums it at different sections depending on how scary or how safe the area is. You can really sense the shakiness in Charles Martinet's voice when Luigi's low on health, nervously humming in the dark corridors, compared to the more calm, upbeat hums Luigi gives when you're running through a safely lit hallway. This has always been one of my favorite little details in any Nintendo game. I even think the bats in some of the dark rooms squeak to the humming rhythm. It's just that good. This game is almost entirely set in this ghost-filled mansion, so multiple floors filled to the brim with super distinctive rooms all cluttered with their own appealing quirks. It really allows for this fun environment to explore at, and of course while it is linear with certain bosses or areas giving you these keys to unlock more doors and repeat so on, it doesn't feel objective based with its linearity. As much as I don't love to use the term, it's almost Metroidvania-like in the aspect of feeling explorative, with its way of handling your room to room goals and the surprisingly good use of backtracking. The scariest sections have to be the consistent jump scares from ghosts and overall the unnerving walks through the dark halls, or the unsettling curiosity you get while unlocking a new one. Ooh yeah, the cutscenes like this in Luigi's Mansion are my favorite. You didn't find this on the N64. The art direction and the pacing, they're just beautiful. Some of my favorite parts about this. But as far as typical horror, or I guess survival horror, Luigi's Mansion implements these cliches, but it turns them into concepts way more digestible for kids, and it adds the charm to the life of the mansion. A lot of the ghosts are softly shaped, round, and almost bouncy looking. A lot of the shapes in this game feel stretched, but more in this whimsical way than a weird one, adding to that goofiness of the Mario world, but still being surprisingly spooky. There is a health bar that does require some upkeep, although you won't be fighting for the plenty of hearts the game gives you. And certain keys and items are required for traversal through the building, so we do have an ounce of that survival horror genre. But come on, this is a full action adventure game with a Halloween aesthetic. I don't think anyone is denying that overall fact. Horror aside, the action adventure is fantastic. You go through this mansion with the help of Gadd and his inventions, sucking up the ghosts, looking for clues to find Mario, and collecting a shit ton of money while at it. Speaking of Gadd, we can't continue without giving love to this character and his inventions. Me and I think everyone agreed that we love Gadd. The moment we met him, no ulterior motives to be evil, and honestly some of the best dialogue in the game. This is a surprisingly well written character for how short of a game this is. Gadd has a ton of inventions and sick gadgets in his lab, all of it to help Luigi in his aid. But the two biggest ones are the Poltergust 3000 and the Game Boy Horror. This is a classic Game Boy Color model reinvented into a ton of different useful tools as built for ghost hunting. We have a boo radar to detect hidden boos in the room. We have the ability to call Gadd and him to call us and update us on things. We have the map of the entire mansion. Gadd really thought of a lot and about everything. It's just plain genius at this stuff. We get the more newer consoles in the later titles of the games, but I love when they put in their consoles and controllers into these important elements for their video games. It somehow wraps the universe of Nintendo together and adds that little cherry of charisma to it. Oh man, dude, the Poltergust 3000, what a badass invention. It's just a vacuum on the outside, but this weird piece of junk that can do it all. It sucks up ghosts, it shoots out objects, spits out elements. It's the most versatile thing in the whole game, and it's one of Nintendo's best ideas. Yeah, I said it. Nintendo created the fucking vacuum. I guess some could say it's the ghost sucker. Okay, back to Gadd. He's just a beautiful little human, and I love what he does. We get to check up on his lab from time to time, whether it be to talk or to transfer our captured ghost into the physical paintings, which can also be viewed and displayed in this adorable little gallery. The biggest aspect of this game, which also is kind of the most repetitive aspect, is the main fights and combat. Luigi's Mansion takes a very different approach with its fight systems. The usual method is to uncover or shine your flashlight onto a ghost, briefly paralyzing it, which then allows you to use that Poltergust 3000 to suck them up in a chaotic tug-of-war sequence. Think of it like attaching a rope to horns of a raging bull, and as it jumps, runs, and indecisively flails around, you have to wrangle it by pulling using your strength against its own force. That essentially is how to suck up the ghost. They try to fly away with all their might, and you roll and jam the control stick in the opposite direction alongside moving Luigi, making sure not to let the ghost overpower you, and even not to get hit by another enemy or some stage hazard. It's a beautiful combat system. Some do argue it can be repetitive, while I would only say how satisfying it truly is. Getting multiple ghosts in one rotation, hitting the perfect angle opposite to them to lower the counter drastically. It's just one of my favorite gaming mechanics I can remember over the past couple years. And it feels so natural too. Like how much effort you give almost directly translate to how fast that ghost is dying. The only thing I'm missing is some form of evasive movement, like a jump to dodge when you are gonna hit some unavoidable obstacles. But they added that in the sequel Dark Moon, so I guess I can't be too upset. That's really the main force of combat. You do unlock 3 elements though, which you can spit out or blow onto certain enemies. Some ghosts will have hearts of ice that can only be weakened by the fire element, or water with ice, or fire with water. Combat aside, these 2 mechanics also work outside of the battles and help you complete certain puzzles or get items, like lighting the candles on fire to make a hidden chest appear, or going back to water the plant every once in a while in that backyard until it fully blooms. I'm in love with how often you get to use the poltergust. I'm so happy they didn't lock it to only just sucking up the ghost during fighting, but also to play around with this world. It's brilliant. There's something so nice about rattling vases for gold bars, and something addicting about sucking the dirty sheets off the walls to reveal buttons or mirrors. I love pouring water on every single plant to get tons of cash flying around Luigi. Dude, I absolutely adore this mansion. This goes perfect with how Luigi's Mansion plays out. It sometimes holds your hand by guiding you with the keys on your map, telling you where to go, or Gadd stopping by, calling you up to push you into this specific direction. It really isn't free roam to the highest degree, but with the space available, a lot of common sense will have to be used by the player to figure out exactly how to get things done. Like it's one giant escape room. With as limited as it is though, the world is just filled with so much. I feel like I've discovered a great amount of content, even now playing 10 years later, and I've played this game multiple times growing up. Before we go on to more mechanic-based things, I wanted to take a moment to discuss something random but very important. I wanted to take a look at a deep dive of the Astral Hall Observatory, the most memorable and gorgeous section in this game, but being the most unexpected part at that. In this observatory, you fight multiple Shy Guys in this room filled with marble and candles. Not much to it at first entering the room, but we discover what I personally think is the definition of game design being pure art. In the next room is the main observatory with a nice wooden fancier wall and floor design, along with gold focused furniture and tools. In here we find a really elegant telescope that we figure out we can look into, but quickly looking into it we change directions to a nice pan over some elegant stars cluttering a dark sky. Panning enough to where we spot a full moon. We switch back to Luigi and the walls seem to break off, disappearing as we look further into the room, and we find starbits flying about, capturing one in our poltergeist and instinctively shooting the moon. For some reason, this scene hits me in a more impactful way than I ever thought something as simple as this could. The refined melody, the shimmering curved bridge, all the way to the soft, almost gummy-like star you pick up. Everything about this scene not only made me love this game, but it made me love Luigi's Mansion forever. And somehow it showed young me that game design isn't just mechanics and graphics, but it's art. It's motion, and it's otherworldly. This is what signified this game, and I absolutely love it for that. The biggest difference between the original and other Luigi's Mansion games, even other Nintendo games, is the wonderful uniqueness of the ghost types, and mainly the bosses. Everyone is most fond of the boss ghosts in this game due to the fact that there are just so many hilarious but still seriously entertaining personalities for almost every single ghost boss and the ghost sub-bosses. Each boss has their own form of weakness before you can suck them up, and everyone has their own cartoony persona that adds to not only that specific boss battle, but the overall collection of the mansion. Some of the ghosts have small backstories and some tiny bits of lore with other ghosts that just add to the mansion's charm and the history essentially. Like the first couple of ghosts you really encounter are not only good beginner bosses with simple weaknesses that act as this good tutorial for the rest, but you suck up a family. If I can get a counter in the comments for every time I said something sus in this video, please, by the love of God. First, you fight the old Pop, the father of the family. He's an easy fix, chilling in his rocking chair in a smaller, cozy library. You find that when you use your Game Boy Horror, you can fully see his spiritual body, and after a couple of seconds or so, the older man gets a little bit tired while reading and yawns, becoming vulnerable enough for Luigi to capitalize on his weakness and suck him up. This is an iconic first boss fight to me, mainly just from nostalgia, but also just how simple and interesting it is to quickly adapt to this situation. After the dad, you move on to the wife, and then the cooler, bigger fights with the baby. There are bigger boss sections sprinkled in where maybe the arena is bigger than usual and they fight using items. Other enemies are just typically harder to fight. The baby was our first instance of this, and honestly one of the more creepy sections of this entire game. The screeching shrieks of the baby is probably one of the worst sound effects I've ever heard. All of the boss fights in Luigi's Mansion range from multiple difficulties and multiple levels of entertainment. Some really are more bland and easier with obvious weaknesses or a boss meant to just be in the way and give a key for progression reasons. But a ton of the bosses have super nice characteristics and are really fun to figure out and fight like its own little puzzle. Walking into this new room and not knowing exactly what you're going into, it adds that kind of unsettling element. Alongside seeing the new ghostly figures and deciphering how to approach and finish them off is always the best part of the game by far. Some of my favorites include Madame Clairvoyant because of her build up with her character and a fun addition to the story. I love the girl who tests you with classic Mario tracks on her piano. And maybe my favorite is the artist, who brings alive all of his paintings, all of the different types of common enemy ghosts before you can actually finish them off. Speaking of them, I should talk about the wacky common enemy ghosts and some of their types as well. These are the types of ghosts that come around in the hallways or gang up on you in bigger rooms. They can pop out of nowhere, scaring you, jumping out of chests, wardrobes, anything that can open up after you shake it a little bit. You have the basic ghosts. You have fast ones, ghosts that strangle you from the back. There's a ghost that throws banana peels. I always thought that one was hilarious because he's just a big goober. Alongside element ghosts that can only be weakened by the good ability matchups. While all of these aren't too detailed or necessarily exciting to fight, they add that filler to the game throughout rooms and just act like your typical room full of enemies. There are some ghosts that can hurt you if you touch them, but are otherwise harmless, like the bats that haunt the ceilings or the mouses that run by you when you enter hallways. And sometimes, if you find the special gold ones, they became a series staple. The enemies are the main point of this game though. They allow room for fillers and reasons for progression and a reason for the story in the first place, because the biggest ghost of them all is the one and only King Boo. Let's talk about the little asshole versions of him that fly around the mansion. Boos. Boos appear after you typically clear a room. Your Game Boy Horror blinks yellow if it senses the presence of a boo, while blinking red means you are right near it. So you should probably kick a chair or something. Boos are really cute and they're a fun part of the game. The first 10 times out of 50. A lot of the boos are taken out during a mid-game boss fight luckily, but that still left about 25 to 30 individual boos that you have to find and chase after. A couple of the earlier boos are super easy, not too much health on them, their dumb boo puns are still fresh and honestly kind of funny, and they act as good as little check marks to save the game. But they just keep coming and popping up and giving you the most random boo puns that I don't even get half the time. My biggest issue with the boos is the really late game ones. Sometimes they go up to 300 health and randomly become track stars when they run into a nearby wall and disappear into the other room. So naturally, you chase down the boo, you leave the room, and hey, you find the same boo waiting there just to tease you. So you run over to him, lower his health down some more, you hear that insane pitching screech in the back of your head, and he thinks it's funny to just run back into the room you first found him in. While it doesn't happen too much, is still real, and it's just wild. I think I chased one over a dozen times. If I can find the footage, I will speed it up right here, but it made me want to pluck the hair from my balls, so I'd rather not see it again. I'm actually getting mad just thinking about it. After talking about the dirty spit that is the boos, let's talk about the main boss, King Boo himself. He's villainous. He's super annoying, he's greedy, and he's a fantastic overall antagonist for a Luigi game, really tying in that overall Haunted Mansion feel together. He is the one who locked Mario up though in that glossy painting, just sadistically watching Mario suffer for an eternity, and his next goal being to reunite the brothers, but in his own devilish way. He isn't too apparent in this entire game, but mostly comes as a reveal midway through the game in a cutscene where you find him admiring the trapped Mario and yearning for Luigi as his next victim, and then later on finally fighting him as the final boss. I vividly remember this boss fight growing up, like it was etched into my brain, but as an adult, it left me with a mixed bubble of love and disappointment. After completing essentially every main thing the mansion has to offer, Luigi grabs hold of the beautiful boss key to the gold treasure room where Mario and King Boo stay, finally confronting that King Boo and starting up the final epic fight. I have a lot of positives to say about this fight, of course, but it's also my main issue with it, since King Boo has a giant robotic Bowser suit that he hops into and controls to fight Luigi. Now, it is a really cool idea, and I like how it's designed. It's done really well, and when Luigi's Mansion released, for a while it was the best we have seen Bowser yet, in my opinion, which is nuts to think about. The Bowser mecha is done really cool too. Since it's huge, it's bright, it's colorful, yet it's still super intimidating. He unleashes long waves of flames at you, hurls explosive spike balls at Luigi, and also barrages through pillars to going to attack Luigi. The fight is all on the highest roof of the mansion with the dark misty forest and the moonlight night sky as the background's landscape. A naturally fitting area for sure. You attack King Boo with the explosives he throws at you, which pops his head off and scares King Boo out of there, making him vulnerable to back him up. Overall, as it stands, it's a fantastic challenge and a great end to the mansion we grew attached to over a short time. But we can be honest and admit how it is kinda lazy to throw in Bowser as the final fight, instead of something slightly more creative that King Boo could have done. While it is better than if King Boo just had the same powers as all the previous ghosts, which would have been cheap, the addition of Bowser feels a little underwhelming as it ages, since Bowser is more of a Mario villain and doesn't fit the feel of Luigi. Especially since barely a year later in GameCube's life, Super Mario Sunshine made a far cooler Bowser boss fight, completely outshining the Luigi Mansion one. I would have loved a more experimental King Boo battle. Really, I do. Imagine if Phase 1 was the rooftop robot Bowser fight. It's cool, it's challenging, and then just after you think you destroyed the giant mech and beat the game, King Boo comes out, breaking out of the robot corpse, and it grows giant, filling up his body with rage. He's pissed and he's out of control. He takes Luigi to this different ghostly realm, similar to how they did with the baby fight earlier on in the game. But instead of the giant baby crib like in that fight, in King Boo's boss battle, we get an alternate version of the entirety of the mansion. Maybe it's a giant void-like room filled with darkness and different pieces of the home, like an amalgamation of everything we saw on our journey and had to conquer on our adventure. We could be fighting smaller, shorter versions of ghosts and even some of the Boo's ghosts as tiny little fights while the gigantic King Boo taunts you the entire time in the background, speaking so little of you. And finally, after a challenge in this other world, you find that star again that you collected earlier in that starry skied room, shining so nicely. You suck it up, sticking it to the vacuum and shooting it at that giant King Boo, overloading him with so much power he explodes in this cinematic downfall as Mario's painting comes flying down. Now, while that might have been complicated, imagine the evergreen stability of that. A boss fight of that magnitude would set a gaming standard for Nintendo games. We all know Nintendo doesn't have the most consistent track record of fucking amazing boss fights, but I personally would have wished this fight to be better. But honestly, it was more than alright for its time, and it was made heavenly since after the fight, we got one of my favorite gaming endings of all time. After destroying King Boo and actually rescuing Mario back, there's only one thing left to do, which is to see how can we get Mario out of this stupid painting. Luckily, Gadd has an idea and hope for the best by putting the painting into the ghost portrait machine, but in reverse. We watch this amazing moment as Luigi sits in awe, watching his brother struggle but successfully morph back into reality and pop right out of that machine. I was a little emotional as a kid, but adult me, I don't know why, I shed a tear. Seeing all of this hard work pay off and Luigi crying but laughing at getting his brother back is this perfect moment to end a game like this. We never see this kind of passionate moments in Mario games, and this one hits hard. It always did, and it's super cheesy, but I adore that. Maybe it does hit extra hard since, like Luigi, I'm a younger brother myself, and there's many moments throughout life where my brother would stay multiple days or weeks in the hospital or just not feeling well, and I would have to stay at home just hoping he gets better, knowing he would get better just in anticipation to see him again, to turn on Super Smash Bros. Brawl or Mario Kart Double Dash or mindlessly play for hours laughing at just nothing. Those moments are even still some of my greatest moments of my life and some of the best memories I've ever experienced. And seeing a version of that with Mario and Luigi, the two people we play as in each Mario game, it fits perfectly. Because like Luigi, if something happened, I too would just do about anything to rescue my brother back. This is like the second, third time I probably talked about my brother the video. That shit, Anyways, Luigi's Mansion is charmed to a T. It's a shorter journey that at times a little repetitive. It has this undeniable replayability and passion that is only in the greatest of Nintendo games. It's aged like a heavenly fine wine. Its music is wonderful, the characters are everlasting, and the feeling I get playing this game back and even just thinking about the times I've had with it makes it more special than I ever would have dreamed of for a game. Luigi's Mansion is one of maybe the most underrated Nintendo franchises out of everything they've released. Lots of communities make arguments against that, and I don't blame them. Luigi does have the spotlight, but I truly feel that way about it. It defines capability, and for that I will always love the hell out of the original Luigi's Mansion. Thank you for listening, and of course, peace and love. My name's been Roxx. See ya.